Let's take a closer look at organizing our rack. In this example, we have a subtractor that is sent to a delay and to something called a matrix, which we haven't discussed, but I need it for my example. You'll see that in a second. I then have a Thor that's sent to the scream that's down here, and I've separated those on purpose, again, to show something else in a moment. And then finally, I have an Octarex. Now, I'm doing something here which I mentioned before. I'm naming all of the devices in the device group with the same prefix, and that makes it very easy to determine what is going to what fader in my mixer. Otherwise, I just see delay or scream, and I don't know what it's controlling. So it's a good idea to use prefixes where possible, and you can certainly get away with shorter abbreviations than the ones I'm using. Now, in the back of the rack, you'll notice different color cables. Green cables are our effect cables. Whenever you see a green cable, it means that something is being routed to or from an effect. So for example, if we look at our subtractor, you see the output is being sent to a delay, and a lighter green cable is bringing it up to the mixer. Red cables are for instruments. So my Dr. Octarex, which is not going through an effect, is going straight to the mixer, and that is red. And finally, yellow cables show CV or gate connections. And the matrix and the arpeggiator are two devices that send this type of information. CV stands for control voltage. It's a virtual control voltage in Reason, and I'll explain much more about the matrix and the arpeggiator in Chapter 2 of this course. Now, I mentioned before that there is an option to hide cables, and it is reduce cable clutter, or the shortcut K. Now, when we press K, you'll notice here that only the cables connected to the highlighted device are shown. Everything else is dimmed. So I have my matrix selected, I'm showing the connections to the matrix. If I select my subtractor, I see the connections to the subtractor. If I select my mixer, I see all the connections coming to or from my mixer. Everything else is dimmed. Well, we have a couple other options to use with our K key, and they're under the General tab of our Preferences. Under Reduce Cable Clutter setting, we currently have it set to Show for Selected Devices Only. The next setting is Hide Auto-Routed Cables. As you'd expect, all the cables will be hidden except for the ones that I manually routed, which I haven't done at all in this example. So let's manually route something. Let's move this away. Let's manually route a cable up here, and you'll see that's the only one shown. If I press K, I'll see all my cables. And if I press K again, I'll only see the one I auto-routed. And finally, there's an option to hide all cables. And what that does is it colors the ports if there's a cable there, and it uses our red, yellow, and green coloring. So if I want to find out what this is connected to, I just hover over it, and I see the tooltips, which are always there. So this tells me I'm connected to the main mixer, channel 5 left. And I press K and I see all the cables again. Now there's one last option here for cable animation, which does absolutely nothing except make Reason look really cool. If I have it turned off, I don't see any swinging cables. But if I have it turned on, I see the cables swing. Isn't that nice? Now sometimes when your rack gets very cluttered, it becomes a little tedious to try and follow the paths of all of these wires, even though the tooltips tell you where the selected cable is connected. So Reason provides an option on the context menu, right-click or control-click, and that option is Scroll to Connected Device. And when I choose that, I hop immediately to the device I've connected to. See the little white circle that pops up? Pretty cool, huh? Let me open up the Thor and we'll see it closer here. So I'll scroll to connected device, it moves up, and it puts a white circle briefly around where the cable is connected. Here's my output, scroll to connected device, and I see in the mixer exactly where it's connected. That makes it really easy to trace your cables. Now back in the front of the rack, you'll remember that the Thor and the Scream are connected, but they're not together in the mixer. If I choose Auto Group Devices and Tracks, or Command G, when I move the instrument, all of the associated effects move with it. Look what happens when I move the subtractor. The delay and the matrix moved with it. Let's see that again. I'll move the subtractor device group and everything moves with it. But when I turn off auto group and move something, everything gets all messed up. So what do you do when everything gets all messed up? How do you put it all back together? Well, you choose Sort Selected Device Groups, and Reason will put the device groups back together. You can use that same option to reorganize your sequencer tracks. So down here is my sequencer, and let me now move some things around. Let me move the loops up here. That's my Dr. Octarex. Now let's say I want to put things back in the same order that the devices are in my rack. Well, I can select different devices and choose Sort Selected Device Groups. You'll see in the mixer, the loops has been placed back down at the bottom. So my sequencer tracks are in the same order as my rack.